Hey, what's going on, guys? Terrence. Just thought I'd bring you a bit of pregame, all right, what to watch for when the Aces host the Indiana Fever in about an hour. Uh, and of course, what the Fever they have to do if they're going to have a chance to win this game. Obviously, the Aces beat on the Mercury pretty good. uh, but it's like people say a lot of times, and they're not wrong. Uh, but obviously, the Fever play and run, different types and variations of offenses and things of that nature. When Caitlin Clark's in the game uh, versus when she's not. All right, so I got my coach's drawing board up here. I put a Aces court on the screen since that's where they'll be playing, right? So I got the Fever in orange and the Aces in purple, right? Right. So so the Aces are the X's and the Fever are O's. But okay, so the Aces, they'll. This is generally speaking, previously, with Asia out, not knowing the Kendi Carter situation, things like that. Uh, like I say, it was a little less predictable as to who was going to do what. I say that with exception to what the Indiana Fever were going to do. You know, their game plans against the Aces last time, uh, they won't work ever. Actually, against any team, they just took advantage of a much uh, lesser version of the Aces as we generally know them, and they have come to in watching them play. Okay, so there's several things, right, that you know uh, you want to pay attention to. Of course, I just set this up right. It's kind of a general idea because this is what you're going to see most of the time. Of course, is your two out down here, right? One, whoops, I didn't mean to grab the player, but you got your one, your two out. All right, so then you're going to have three here, and then Boston, and then notice, of course, when Caitlin's in the game, where she sets the screen to be anywhere between here and here. Like I say, it all depends on, like I say, when Caitlin's in the game, and of course who has the ball. Even when Caitlin's in the game, if Caitlin doesn't have the ball, Boston's going to set the screen lower. Nobody else is coming off of any screens. Okay, so let's just say this is Caitlin. So I don't feel like dragging the ball on Caitlin. So we'll just go. All right. Caitlin comes. Whatever. Boston comes up to set this screen. Okay, so if this player, doesn't bite, we'll just call it bite, right? On that, because the Aces do a good job of slipping screens and things of that nature that we're not good at. There I go again with the weird. The Indiana Fever are not good at. So let's say Caitlin Clark comes off this screen. Okay, so she's open and she's going to take that shot every day, all day. Okay, that's and the same we would say for Steph Curry. That's it's a good open look. Anybody else in the on the team or in the league, you'd say no, and if it went in, it would be a 1 in 50 ish if it does go in. But the Aces are going to if it's on weak side, whether they use, let me sit clear on the lines, right? Whether they if we have the ball on this side, right? So whether they decide then to snug up against the guard here, okay, so that's obviously advantage Caitlin. She goes around full speed, slows up, then she bites. Okay, the first hesitation, and she's just going to rim run, right, take it to the. But then the other thing is she's going to remember, okay, does this player then, because they're going to obviously be playing off there, go ahead and step over? Probably. So this player always has the option to just stay there and then shoot that three. This is just me, right, as a coach. I always say if they'll just, you know, ease on in, you don't have to sprint, because about where this person is right here is, you know, ideally, where you'd be, and up just a smidge. So if you want to use a glass, you can. Gets it off the glass. Then Caitlin will just dump it to you. Easy layup. A lot of times they don't. They just stay way out there, and she'll make the pass. And then, of course, if you make the three, good. If you don't, but just percentages, right? And percentage of the shot. But when it was, just say, Kelsey and Aaliyah Boston, and then the aces, everything was, kind of, not kind of, it was in reverse. It looked, a whole lot more like this, with, let's just say, somebody else as the point guard, which it was Tyers, right? And you'd have Kelsey down here. Well, then, you'd have Boston say come down, set the screen. Whoever else is here, it's setting second screen. And then, you had Mitchell coming off, for an easy, just a little. That's where I said, a dump pass, in a spot here where you otherwise had, a 10, 12 foot area to drop a lob or a bounce pass, about anything you wanted to, I guess. It's kind of like I said, it's easy to, brag about only having, say, 7 turnovers when you're throwing dimes into a pond, because that's really all they were doing. It was one pass, two, right, at the most, unless it's a broken play. And broken plays is when, of course, you'll see three, four, a fifth pass even. That's getting up there, but more than one, and then of course, like say, the actions. So regardless of whether or not the Fever go, okay, that formation, because I said, scheme wise, they'll go with, I'll just say 3 to 5. It's probably more like 4 or 5, but I always say 2 or 3, because to me, like this here, we get two at the elbows, but that and this here, right? They're doing the same things, just a little different. I mean, they do matter, but uh, you know, defensively, in the big scheme of things, they should. And this, I'm doing is making this, using this as an example and saying that the Aces are playing man. Okay, so if they are, then okay. So either way, when the ball's in the middle, they're not gonna be all up on the person that they're guarding. They're gonna be slacked about halfway to the paint. Is what you can bet on. Be about halfway to the paint, and I didn't pay a whole lot of attention, just because they didn't take them very long to get out to a significant lead against the Mercury. But I did try to watch just a little bit of it, and they did really good offensively. The Aces did. It is, I'm certain they did well. From, like, there again, what I saw, they did do well defensively, and let's just say, they're gonna, right here in the middle, they're gonna double screen, and have either one come off or both come off. Is one going down, one's going out? Are they both going out? And making that look like they're doing something, so they're chasing, and then of course they get caught chasing, and then Caitlin's just taking, uh, best guess. And I say this, it may end up being Jackie, but probably I can't remember if it's number 1 or number 7. But the 6'2" guard that the Aces have that starts, um, probably beyond Caitlin. She, her guarding Caitlin up here is a mismatch. All right, made in heaven for Caitlin Clark. So whatever you can do to clear out is definitely what any coach is going to do if they're dumb enough to do that. Let me put these players back where they normally are. Okay, so what I watched a lot of, let's just say last time Caitlin played, and even though she got 9 points and 3 assists, right, and they said the 4 turnovers, 2 of the turnovers our other players just dropped. One of them they gave Caitlin the turnover. It wasn't even Caitlin didn't pass the ball. It was Damaris Dantas, and then of course the one I said, in the one video I made where I was joking around as the Fever head coach and said, it wasn't a kicked ball. Very well could have been. I didn't go back and play it in slow mo, but either way. So, what the players have a tendency to do is, let's just say, well, I told you, and that I did have to head out of town for a bit, so I made a kind of a short video of uh, a few things from the second, uh, first or second Mercury game. I can't remember, but I just did them from my phone while I was at the airport. But nonetheless, right, is a lot of things will obviously dictate what you can and can't do. Okay, so what you never see is teams double team Kelsey Mitchell. They just don't. So even though she's getting her 20, 30, I don't know if people pay much attention to that or not, but um, I don't know if it's they don't care, um, or they just don't think that she'll be able to continue doing it. And of course, if the coach for the Fever continues to use uh, Kelsey like she does and forces her to go, let's just say, because if let's see if Caitlin's on ball, right, then Kelsey's usually going to be over here. So she and that so that'll normally be a right, and then Kelsey's going to go around, and then right screen go around. They're just that's your motions. I know I made all that look just so pristine, right, and so easily understood. But obviously, the big thing for them will be, protecting against what we the Fever, and especially Caitlin Clark and Leah Boston. They're the best in the league at. Is this player? If I say if it's a real thing, right? So Boston sets his screen, and this player comes over, and them, you know, because it's just a natural tendency, right, for them to want to think they're going to be able to trap ball here. So there again, now it's getting more known. Boston's still going to have a few more decent games knocking down those threes. Otherwise, if she really is that open, it would be dumb for her not to just, take that on in for a layup. What you can't do is the more you'd like to, but is the more say old school variety, right? You do this first, okay, nothing, no go, and this player's, staying in front of Boston is, okay, well, option number two. All right, Boston, go take the, low post block on ball side, right? So, now all Caitlin's going to do is manipulate her man, tell this player get the hell out of the way. So then that's what she would do, and they all should go, uh, slide around and more or less clear out for Boston to post up. Now this player, like I say, if they're smart about it, which generally, like I say, a Becky Hammon coach team is, then like, and then of course, Caitlin's just going to drive here a little bit, leaving room. She's not going to get too close. That's what other guards will make a mistake of doing. You can't, that's why you never pass the ball from, say, Boston. If let's say Monique Billings was, right here, that it's a dumb pass when you get that close. Um, so, Caitlin's never going to get, too close, but anywhere in this range right here, she'll go ahead and make that bounce pass into Boston and then let, Boston do her thing. So this player rotates down to help. And this is where we always talk about helping and recovering, right? So your help, and let's just say Boston decides to kick it out. That's, of course, recovering, is getting back to that player. But you have to help the helper also. So she's helping, all right. So then this player has to recognize that she's helping, and they've got to see. They got so she's got to slide over to either pick off the pass if Boston tries to make it across court there, or if they're spread out more, then she's going to have to go ahead and pick her up, and then of course, like I said, you give something up or take something away, you're giving something up. So you're okay when you make that decision to give up this three ball. So back to my thoughts on this whole on the game in general, and my thought process as far as the uh, the W itself, these players, the way that they play, uh, you know the way they play screens. Like say, you got to know who you're playing, right? Who's in the game. So a lot of it's going to be on personnel, who's in, who's on ball, who's off ball. When they set the screens. Okay, so if defensively, right? I'm just going to use the Aces in this case as an example, right? Defensively, what you wouldn't want is your back three up this high, right? That's where you get in trouble. I'm just, even if you left this one down here, all right, and they said post player. Okay, so, Boston's down here. Okay, so then Boston's got her on the front side. Why is that bad? There's a lot of room for especially for somebody like Caleb Clark to make a pass. Just drop it in overhead, boop, against the glass layup. That's saying we make them, but there again. Okay, so, if defenses, you know, start at the low post block, same with rebounding, then, even if they were in the zone, right? The top of the right here, the top of the restricted circle is the perfect uh, you know depth, and then of course as far up as you would want if that was your say your back three to go. There's no room to make that pass if unless some a team or player was dumb enough to leave this here that wide open, then of course, let's just say Boston's down here, then Caitlin's just going to lead her with that pass, right to the middle, and she's going to take it and then turn around, spin move, lay it in. But yeah, the defense, where is that defensive back line? So, early in the game, you keep an eye on when I'm trying to draw a line. If I accidentally get close to a player, it stops me. Uh, okay, and there again, by the same token, right? You don't want this back line either to be too far back. If they're too far back, now you lost your rebounding position. You lost, the ability to keep them from getting in the paint because Boston's here. That's sorry, that's you know whoever is at the guard position. If Caitlin really is only going to get 20 to 25 minutes, uh, doesn't bode well for us, by the way. But um, because, like I say, you just hope, I guess, as a fan uh, of the sport, that you get to watch good basketball, right? I mean, that's what I get sick of is just watching bad basketball. Now, me personally, obviously, it's not just from a fan perspective. It's from about any perspective, uh, or that I can't. That's just something that I won't do. Is watch bad basketball. It's so hard, but. Um, Yeah. See, the Aces do well. Let's just say this is Boston here, right? Why would you go up there? I mean, get right up. Not, there's no reason. You're obviously you got to pay attention if it's Caitlin Clark at the guard on where the screen's being set, things like that. Um, so if Boston's coming up here to set a screen, okay, so just like any other sport, just like officiating, just like whatever, playing defense, playing offense. It's always about angles. Everything is always about angles, right? An angle that you take. If you're not as fast as the player that has the ball, you're on defense. You have to take the best angle to be able to cut them off. You got to beat them to a spot. Pick a spot. Let's just say this is the spot. Okay. So then, their angle would just be because that's where she's headed. And at the same time, there is some obviously room for, and then that's where, of course, your coaching and whatnot comes in, defensively, et cetera, et cetera. But is them getting to that spot, and then also knowing or trusting, I guess, that your help is going to be where they're supposed to be, so she can't just then split both of you and head to the basket. Now, the other thing that I was going to mention, of course, uh, is well, the fever specifically. Just say Caitlin got the ball, okay, whatever. Whoever the plays for, that's a little bit irrelevant, right? What they've got to quit doing is you've got, and I think last time I had said, whether it's, play one, play two, or whatever, it's your first action, second, third, fourth. You're actually never going to get to your third, fourth, fifth, with a 24-second shot clock, unless you're putting the ball up, getting rebounds, right? Which is, there again, a key to victory. They've got to be on the offensive glass. They've got to stay on the defensive glass and keep the Aces from second chance opportunities. Uh, last time, obviously, we had a huge size advantage. This time, not so much. Uh, and like I say, we've got to be able to get off these screens up here and stop biting, more or less. I'm just using the term biting, right? On fakes and this and that, and just absolutely, this player just running into that player, when they come up for the screen. Because, if you set the screen like this, right, and this player's okay, as Caitlin, okay, she can do this. Now, the other guards, not so much. She sees this player. So she can manipulate this player while she's here so that she can go to the right or to the left. All right. The other ones can't do that. Now, what Caitlin will also do, and you may or may not see this tonight, but she did do it, and I should pull up that film and show it to you guys on the next video. So hopefully it won't take too terribly long, and I'll get that done. But what she did was the player that was guarding her, right, was playing off, and Caitlin just like your Steph Curry or anybody else for that matter. They want to be able to more or less have control over the situation and what they can and can't do. You don't show them any respect shooting a shot here. Uh, they're going to pull that. Okay. So what Caitlin did in that game is she was about here. Now it wasn't against the Aces. I don't remember who it was against, but let me just move this player up a little bit. All right. But she was about here. So what Caitlin did, regardless of how if you're her, and then like I say, with all the rumors and the and the drama and the nonsense and all that stuff going on, and does are her and Stephanie White really ride or die and things of that nature or whatnot. Um, how much can Caitlin say? How much can as far as her, how she feels about playing for Stephanie White, or or how she feels about Stephanie White. How does she feel about the offenses they run, the defense, anything else for that matter. The NBA, they tend to be a little more transparent. Obviously, any league on the planet does, but like I say, I don't, I try not to get into that too much. But the things I know that obviously will and do piss Stephanie White off are things that Caitlin does that she was never able to do, and even as a coach now, still doesn't understand why she does it, right? But obviously, I saw it early in the game. Is the player that was guarding her was, uh, didn't, everybody does. They pick her up and in here, if not closer, right, and all the way up. Okay, so but in a nutshell, she owns you. Just know she's in complete control. Uh, when she has the ball, and it's one player, Gardner like that. Uh, she's gonna, as soon as you try to bring two, you're cooked. Uh, if everybody else is not just standing around watching, we have a tendency to do that for one, so we can't do that. Everybody's got to keep moving, but at the same time, when these players are moving, you all also always have to be mindful of what these say guards or Boston, if she has the ball, are doing up here, where they're going, or going to try to go, and are you going to be clogging this up? Because that's what you don't want to do, is clog it. You got to leave this open. If you're fortunate enough, and they're not running a variety defense that's not going to allow for uh, the dribble drive penetration, things like that. Obviously, we've got to get paint touches. Paint touches allows for our shooters to get open, and those shooters have to knock down shots, right? Whether it's Boston, Billings, Lexi, Sophie, you name it, all of them. Even to Ty Harris, to and regardless if Caitlin's in the game or Kelsey's in the game, uh, they can't be looking over at coach all the time to see if they approve, or what did you say the play call was, or what are you're wasting time. Okay, you're killing the Smalls. Just you know you see what they're trying to do. All right, so there's an advantage and a disadvantage to about any for whatever it was that one of those smart philosophers said. Physics, I think it was. For every action, there's an equal and or opposite reaction. So it's the same thing, right? It's there again. There is a lot more to any sport than just the sport itself, right? But at the same time, at the end of the day, game plans break down, right? Um, your first action, your third action, uh, and nothing was open. All right, well, you got to know that. Just like a quarterback in football, right? They've got or the person throwing the ball in bounds for that matter, has a clock running in their head that lets them know they're getting close to 5 seconds. Quarterback has a clock running in his head that lets him know about how long he's got before he gets hammered. Um, so even without looking up at the 24-second clock, they know about how long that is. They've been doing this since they were kids. So, I did see a video earlier where somebody said, 70% ish of the WNBA, just aren't good players. And, you know, for the most part, a lot of that's true. And so, in that case, uh, it's on, the coaching in a nutshell. So, because let's just take Nikasi, for example, right? Nobody is doubting her as a coach. I'm damn sure not. She's in her second year with the expansion team, and they got a hell of a record. They're doing really good. Beaver in first now in the East. Not saying a whole lot really, because that only puts you in fifth in the whole damn W out of 15 teams. So I don't. You're in the top third barely of the whole league, but that's just because the Western conference 1 through 4 slots. But like I say, every game right now for the Fever is they're not all must wins because there's still plenty of games left, but uh, they're getting increasingly more important and they're playing tougher teams. Uh, some of the games. I think Courtside the other day showed a screenshot. This, of course, is by far the toughest game. I think that we had a 5 game stretch he showed. Uh, but there again, in the people want to talk about the 4-0, without Caitlin Clark on the floor, and yeah, okay, and the narratives and whatever else, right? Is my thoughts on that are only this: is that your ESPNs, your mainstream medias of the world, they got to change the narrative, right? Keep it basketball, just kind of like I do, generally speaking, when I don't pretend to be the coach and do my, go off on my own tangent or rant, right? But uh, I couldn't help it just because the things she says, I swear I lose brain cells every time she opens her mouth. I get dumber. Um, because a lot of things are like, no shit. You tell us something we don't know at a post game presser about communication on the defensive end of the ball. I mean, you know, so you're this defensive player, right? And you're this defensive player. Okay, well, if your man is coming up to the screen, you're hollering, screen, screen. Or if it's on the left side or right side, whatever the case may be. That's what they're talking about. It's like, oh, dang it. That was 10 seconds of wasted because she probably sniffed 4 or 5 times and had 6 or 7 ums in between. So actually, it was more than that, like 30 seconds worth. But whatever is what it is, right? It's like, why don't you break it down just a little? I mean, I know that it's tough for you to do. It's classified information, that you got to keep it on lockdown because you're so goddamn special and all that. Shut the hell up, you and everybody else. So yeah, it as a team, the Fever, right? They're not gonna like they did against the Mercury shoot 50% from the field as a team. All right, so they beat the Mercury by 3. Who the Aces just beat by 48. Um, but you don't really expect the rest of the team to always shoot, and they shouldn't have to always shoot 50% from the field. That's ridiculous. Of an ask for them, to have to do that. At the same time, those players, whether it's Lexi, when Caitlin's on the floor a lot of times, she's a little more hesitant to shoot it. Put the ball up. If you're a shooter, shoot it. Okay. If it's Caitlin's going to shoot it, just because your name's Lexi, not Caitlin, I don't give a shit. Shoot the ball. You're a shooter. That's what you do. Uh, because just like Caitlin, when I said this player played, was playing her back here, she didn't like that. She wanted to play her up on her so that Caitlin could decide whether or not she wanted to then use screen or any kind of action, or if she just wanted to shake and bait and take her to the rim. Right? It's a little harder to do when they're spaced out. Giving up that much room because now they can just take an angle, and beat you to this spot. And then then you just keep going back and forth, right? As if you watch, you know, uh, film of, let's just say, the last game where Kelsey had 29. I mean, I don't know how, she had to have been nearly, if not after the game, on oxygen from dribbling and running around so much to get open because she was, there was very few times that she was open. All right, any other player in the league is open on three, right? And you want to pick up that screen. Preferably, you like to be on that spot, when they set the screen. But I'm just going to move an Aces player out here, right? Or Matt, let me just take us over here, Boston, right? All right, is right on or near the 3 point line. Give or take a foot and a half, two at the most, right? There's only one player in the league, Caitlin Clark. Okay, she's the only one. Logo here, logo is about the same spot on the other side. Logo, right? Anywhere, you know, it's she can be unpredictable, and and if she's on, then it's your ass. If if you're the one that's that left her open, didn't know ahead of time, you had to guard her up that high. So we've got to know who we're playing, and Caitlin's not on the other team, so we don't have to. If the player sets the screen up above the 3 point, one step above the 3 point line, right here, where this arrow is right here. Okay, right there. She's setting the screen, so then the guard's going to come down, right? Okay, this one right here. Okay, you don't got to come up here because you just screwed yourself. I'm saying if this is not Caitlin, because Caitlin's obviously not going to do. She's not dumb enough to do that. But if you're the other player, uh, or if you're the defense, I'm sorry. Obviously, you're going to get cooked on the way to the basket. Okay, so defenses, the reason they have to do that with Caitlin is because of the respect they have to have for that shot that she will take, and then or Boston, rim running or popping, in which case, like I said, these players just move over, kind of out of the way. What they need to do is flip around, right, on the person that was guarding them, so then when that rebound comes off, they've got a second chance opportunity. Go lay it back in. They don't do that though. I don't know what the deal is. I mean, that's damn fundamental basketball. So like I say, so if they're setting the screen at the 3 point line. One, their closest foot to the basket is on or just above the 3 point line. There is no reason, none, for the Indiana Fever to be trying to squeeze over top of that screen. That is, I like I say, when I see it, it's like, okay, they're not doing that because that's what they necessarily want to do. It's what their coaches have been teaching them or trying to coach them to do and to play and how to play those variety uh, screens and things of that nature. But it's like I say, you gotta know who you're playing, and what they like to do. Like I say, the Valkyries team likes to shoot high volume threes. Just so happens, I think the Aces last game put up 38, maybe ish. Uh, maybe it was only 32 or something, but threes. Uh, you know, But all right, guys, I'll get off here and get this uploaded so you will have some variety idea. But like say, if if any team would do something, they'll call it say boxing one. It's a little more expanded variety, so it's not your elementary version boxing one like this. Like this would be when they say boxing one. This is what they mean, right? So you got a box and a chaser. So you got one chasing ball, right? And especially with Caitlin in the game, that's just an absolutely terrible idea. But because she makes so many things open. But you're basically trapping out of this, right? So this player, let's say she goes right, and it's not Caitlin. So this player is up on them, but you're always trapping, and it's once it gets closer to. That's why it works for anybody literally other than Caitlin Clark in the W. It would work fine for her because they are a little wider or just a smidge higher. It's still a box, right? And it's still a trapping variety zone defense, and you're still leaving, your players the best opportunity for the rebounds, you know, and to attack the glass. But let's just say, like there again, we're gonna have to pretend like it's somebody else because Caitlin's not that stupid. But this player is going to blitz when they think that they're going to wait, right? But they're going to blitz when they think that player is okay. They can, could potentially make that shot, and they're going to force their hand, right? So that player's going to jump now. Okay, they're going to jump. This one's going to jump. You're taking everything away, and you're making them make that, the most difficult pass. And you're kind of hoping this player here knows what they're doing and has some good court vision and can stay in between these two. Obviously a decent coach is just going to have this one go back door, but I don't know if White would ever have them stay out there if somebody ever did that. Like I say, nobody's going to do it when Caitlin Clark's playing, but when anybody else is in the lineup, they are all looking at coach like she knows what she's doing. When in reality, I don't know if everybody else that's watching these games realizes she doesn't really know what the hell she's doing, and it's very obvious, and evident from her record at Vanderbilt. I mean, that's like the most obviously the largest sample size that we have. We can't take a 6 year history from the WNBA because she took over a Connecticut team that was an all-star team already. And so, they were making the semifinals or finals with or without a coach. Obviously they got a mega superstar team now, and we're 13-9. If CC doesn't play more than 20 minutes, we're going to be 13-10. It's like this when you have superstars and players, or a player like Caitlin, right? It's just, I guess, human nature, and it happens in sports. It's all sports, not just basketball. But the other players, tend to, and that's why I said, shooters shoot, just like bigs, take it to the rim. That's what you get paid to do. You're a professional athlete, so do your job. Caitlin will do hers. Uh, you know, no, she doesn't. On that narrative and drama, by the way, she doesn't need preferential treatment. She doesn't need special rules. Uh, it's just if you're going to, call her for those fouls that don't exist, do the same thing. When other players are doing that to her, when they're armbarring her, and holding her from blowing past them, things like that. It's not her fault. Well, I'm sorry, I did say this one time, but it is her fault for being that much better than the second best player in the WNBA. There's a reason. They call it generational talent for a reason. So, the potential's there. The want to be the greatest of all time is there. Now she just needs time, right, in the league. Without and of course I said this on Courtside Live last night, which was just that the players need to If they're mad about it, just like with the Eagles and their tush push, right? If the other 31 teams in the damn NFL don't like it, do something about it. Stop them, right? When it's 4th and 1. Fucking stop them. Do it a few times, and guess what? They're going to have to do something different on 4th and 1, or they're going to have to punt the ball. Same thing, okay? If you can't, I can't get mad at you because you're a better basketball player than me, or vice versa. Well, I can, but that's just me hating on you. Is all that is. And so if you're better, prove it, prove it, prove it. Go out on the court tonight and prove that you're better than she is. Match up with her and put up better numbers. And like I say, this is on a long term basis, right? And then you can prove that during that era that you were actually the better player, even though she is the face. I don't know, where that all comes from. Like I say, they got to quit changing the why other players, the jealousy and the hate and the yada yada because she's not this, because she's not that. Because she doesn't say a whole lot. We know that there's things that she can say, she can't say. There's reasons for all those things, right? So I'm not her attorney. I'm not her, uh, you know, agency, obviously. So those are the only people that I'm going to listen to uh, when they have information that they want to put out about the players. Are they going to stay in Indiana? Are they thinking about going somewhere else? I'm not going to sit there and uh, put out stuff to you guys like maybe, maybe not, nah, mm, or same with coaching. It is what it is. Uh, like I say, White. The offenses that she runs, are typically, uh, very basic, and there'll be one, two, three action. Okay, so if just say you had two players here, right? So they're gonna screen across here, or even here and a double screen or what have you. But it's like I said the other day, right? Is if the ball's on this side of the floor, and this is when Caitlin's out. When Caitlin's in, it's 50-50 guess, right? Is what I'll say. Because if she sees something different, she does not care to do something different. But if the Fever are heavy on one side, the play is going to the other side. It looks like the Fever are going to do something here. No, they're not. This player is probably going to set a screen. Kelsey's going to curl off of this, and Caitlin make it pass in. Uh, or whomever. Like I say, but there again, there's nothing difficult about that or hard to understand. I said on the last Aces Fever game preview that I did that the Aces, right, if they line up heavy on let's just say the in this case would be the left side if you're a player, but right is they're going to the left side. All right, and then the Fever, it's the opposite generally speaking, right? It's if this doesn't end up wide open, and if it does, then obviously you're going to take advantage and hopefully get those paint touches, like say, so you can open up those outside shots. It's like but the other players hopefully they'll bring the same energy that they do when they play when Caitlin's not in the game or not able to play that they do when she is, because they don't. Otherwise, they would be better. All right, see you guys.